All right, so today we're going to dive into a text that has guided some of the most powerful people in history for almost 2,000 years. But here's the wild part. It was never meant to be a book. It was just a man's private diary.
And that's exactly what makes it so incredible. I mean, think about it. It wasn't written for an audience. It wasn't for you or me. It was just one person writing to himself, a collection of his own private notes on how to be a better person. And get this, the guy writing the diary, he just happened to be the Roman emperor, Marcus Aurelius. So you're literally getting a peek inside the head of the man ruling the known world and finding out he's wrestling with the same stuff we all are. That is the big question, right? How did he do it? Well, that's what we're going to explore. We're going to break down the core tools Marcus used to find his center in the middle of all that chaos. And you'll see how they're just as powerful for us today as they were back then. Okay, so the first and most fundamental tool is all about this, mastering your inner world. Marcus realized something huge. You can't control what happens out there, but you absolutely can control what happens in here, inside your own head. Now, this is a pretty radical idea. What he's saying is that things themselves aren't what make us suffer. It's not the traffic jam, it's not the criticism, it's the opinion we add on top of it, the story we tell ourselves that this is bad. This really breaks it down perfectly. You've got the external event. That's out of your hands. You can't change it. But then you have your judgment about it. And that part, that is 100% in your control. And realizing that gap exists, well, that's the key to freedom. This is such a powerful way to think about it. When you feel anxious, it's not some external force attacking you. Marcus figured out that he was the common denominator in every situation that made him anxious. The anxiety was coming from him. So you don't have to escape it. You can just discard it because you were the one who created it in the first place. So once you start getting a handle on your inner world, what's next? How does that actually change what you do? Well, that brings us to the second tool, directing your actions. Marcus was convinced that most of what we do and say and even worry about just isn't necessary. So we use this simple 3-step process. First, you just ask yourself, constantly, is this essential? Then you have to be brave enough to just cut out what isn't. And when you do that, you get this amazing double benefit. You're more peaceful, and you have more energy to do the important stuff really, really well. And this is how you tackle those essential things. It doesn't matter what it is. Sending an email, talking to your kid, working on a project. You give it your complete and total focus. Treat it with the respect and care it deserves, as if it might just be the last thing you ever do. This right here is the Stoic definition of success. See, Marcus thought ambition, chasing after what other people say or think about you, was just insane, a recipe for misery. Real sanity, he said, is when you tie your happiness to your own actions. Did I act with character? Did I do the right thing? That's all that matters. All right, so we've got our inner world and our actions covered, but what about the really hard stuff? Dealing with things going wrong and, other people. Just think for a second about your natural reaction when something awful happens. You get some bad news, a project you worked on completely fails. Our gut instinct is almost always the same thing. Yeah, we just see it as a bad thing, a total setback, a tragedy even. And we can get really stuck there, just feeling sorry for ourselves. But Marcus would catch himself in that moment, and he would perform this just incredible mental flip. Now, why on earth would he say that? Because for him, this was the test he'd been training for. It was an opportunity to actually use his philosophy, to respond with courage and resilience. The obstacle wasn't in his way. The obstacle was his way to prove his character. It's fortunate because he was built for this. This has to be one of the hardest things to deal with. One of Marcus's most trusted generals literally tried to overthrow him while he was sick and weak. He had every reason in the world to want payback. But he didn't go there. He knew that letting someone else's horrible behavior make him horrible would be the real defeat. The ultimate win is to hold on to your own integrity, your own goodness, no matter what anyone else does. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. This is maybe the most powerful tool Marcus used to keep everything in perspective. This is the idea of memento mori, remember that you will die. And look, I know that sounds really dark, but it's not meant to be. It's a tool for getting clear. If you remember that your time here is finite, it forces you to ask, is this argument really essential? Is this worry worth my final moments on Earth?
It's the ultimate filter to live a life that actually matters.
And so that's the final question he leaves us with. And it's not a question for someday down the road. It's for right now. Knowing that your life could end at any moment, how are you going to choose to live this one?